Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be doing an album review. I'm going to be taking a look at this record here, which is Cafe Bleu by the Style Council. So yes, I'll just be doing my usual thing in this video, giving a bit of background information about the album, then showing you my vinyl copy of it here, and then looking at each of the album songs in detail. So this review was requested by a user called Mr. Marcy 76. So yeah, thank you very much for requesting this. So yeah, this was the Style Council's debut album, released on the 16th of March in 1984. However, for the Style Council, the album very much did not just come out of nowhere. So, of course, like fronted by Paul Weller, formerly like off like the Jam, arguably the kind of like the biggest band like in like the world, like kind of like when like they kind of broke up in like in like 1982. Very much a decision that kind of shocked a lot of like the kind of like the musical kind of like world like back then. I think he kind of split up the Jam kind of thing because he kind of felt creatively boxed in and wanted to try and explore a wider range of like musical styles. So the concept behind the Style Council was to do something a lot more kind of fluid and like less kind of like much less like of like a kind of like a rigid lineup like as like the Jam like had been. So basically like the only two constants like in the Style Council were Paul Weller and Mick Talbot on keyboards, who Weller had known for quite a few years. I think he'd played as a session musician on a couple of Jam albums. I think he's on some tracks on Setting Suns, and he played in a string of other kind of like modern revival bands such as the Merton Parkers, and also I think did a stint in Dexys Midnight Runners like as well. Other contributors to the Style Council would kind of come and go and would be known as honorary councillors, and would be kind of like sort of like not kind of part of the band. So it really allowed Paul Weller and Mick Talbot ultimate flexibility to try almost anything out. And instead of rushing into making this debut album, they instead spent their first year of 1983 releasing a series of singles. So starting off with the fantastic Speak Like a Child here, one of their very best songs, I think, and then doing Money Go Round, which was slightly like not one of my favourite Style Council singles, but but again exploring maybe slightly more kind of funk kind of like driven sort of sound. You then had the EP à Paris, which was the kind of like the centerpiece of this was Long Hot Summer. This very synthesizer kind of heavy kind of ballad, and that again very soulful. And then maybe my favorite like out of these three actually like would be A Solid Bond in Your Heart. Again, proper Northern Soul kind of stomper this on here. Fantastic stuff. So yeah, those four standalone singles they released in 1983, all very different from one another. A very diverse collection like singles there. However, anyone who had bought the singles and thought that Weller was kind of pushing the boat out, doing stuff that was sort of too mad and too unusual, must have had another thing coming when the album was eventually released, like I said, in March of 1984. So there's a very conscious effort with this album not to include any of those previous four singles in like the same versions like as had been previously released. Even their latest single, which was, I think I've got the 12-inch of it here, My Ever Changing Moods, which came out a couple of months before the album, was in a completely different version to like the one you get on the album. So yeah, kind of continuing that kind of theme from the Jam of really giving the fans kind of proper good value for money. Now, Weller has said about the album in retrospect that we were winding people up. We wanted to shock, if only because everyone had such a strict image of what I was about. I wanted to smash that down, like he said. So, and I think he very much achieved that, with this album. Because at the time, it basically confused critics and fans alike. Sounds magazine called it dispensable dross, but smash hits were a little bit more positive, saying Weller wants to win fans not on his previous reputation, but on his musical worth. And the album was a commercial hit, like, as well, it has to be said. So it reached number 2 on the UK charts. And, like, in, like, America, it was released as a kind of completely reconfigured version. It had this kind of cover, like, on it. Like, I haven't got, like, the American version, unfortunately, but, yeah, they kind of messed around with, like, the track listing, like, a little bit. And this US version actually, like, seen Weller achieve probably his biggest US success, like, to date, really. Like, it reached number 56, like, on like, the Billboard charts, and My Ever-Changing Moods, the single, charted at number 29 there. And they were also voted in, I think it was like the Billboard Magazine Awards, as the best new band of 1984. So yeah, they really did seem like on like the up, like when it came to like the US market. So anyway, I will try to show you my vinyl copy of the album here. So this is, yeah, I said, an original UK pressing of it here. So there's no fancy gatefold or anything with this, but it just looks like that, like on the back. So you've got the two core members, Weller and Talbot, and then Steve White, a wee mention of him there. Still very young, I think he was 18 or 19 when they released this album, and he kind of became a kind of proper member, like, of the Style Council, like, as like years went on. But here he was still very much kind of outside of like the core group. The inner sleeve is just a plain blue sleeve, and the record is on a kind of custom label, which is quite nice. It looks like that on one side, and then you've got this kind of pattern like on the other. And then what's quite nice as well with this is some copies came with a little promotion booklet here as well. So it says notes from the Cafe Bleu here. And then you've just got various pictures in here. You've got a little bit of text there from the Cappuccino Kid. I think it was Weller and like the band like themselves just having a bit of fun, like with like the sleeve notes there. You've then got, yeah, lyrics and credits as well, and a few nice pictures, like a few stills there from the Solid Bond in Your Heart video, and then a few photos there, and then all their singles and that released to date. So yeah, overall a really nice like little booklet there, and yeah, a nice little vinyl package. Okay, so I'll now go over each of the album's tracks in detail. I'll score each song out of 10, and then use those scores to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. So the record kicks off with the track Mixed Blessings, which is basically a kind of Mick Talbot penned instrumental to kick off the album. It's quite a fun, upbeat piano number. It's quite short, and it's quite a sprightly like little number. It's just a kind of fun introduction to the album, I think. It's nothing more than that, really. It's, yeah, a lot of these songs are quite difficult to score kind of thing, but I'll give this one a 6 because it's not bad. Would I ever play it out with the album? Probably not. I think it just kicks off things like quite well. So yeah, Mixed Blessings would get, yeah, a 6 out of 10.
Oh, it's easy, so easy.
And then the second track is not actually even listed like on like the sleeve. So yeah, we get a hidden track, which is the Whole Point of No Return, which is a kind of, yeah, bare bones kind of sort of like it's just Weller like his like electric guitar like on this, but a very kind of angry kind of protest song, this one here, about the kind of destruction like of like the ruling classes. He sings with it, rising up to break this thing, from family trees the dukes do swing, just one blow to scratch the itch, the laws made for and by the rich. So quite, yeah, biting stuff like on this one here. For me personally, I just don't think it quite works this early on, like on the album. Kind of coming after, yeah, this very short Mixed Blessings, kind of, yeah, like a minute, like fun instrumental. You think, okay, what we're gonna get, and then this just very, very quickly brings the mood down. And I think if it had come a bit later, like on the album, maybe on side 2 possibly, I think it would have worked like a little bit better. I just think the sequencing here just doesn't quite work for me, and it just kind of jars like a little bit. But it is a good song though, and yeah, I would give it an 8 out of 10 overall. Next up is called Miship Came In. Now this is another kind of jazzy instrumental, this one here. So it's a slightly more Latin infused to this track here. For me, it's getting a 5. Again, it's not bad, it's not great though. It's a bit less likeable, I'd say, than Mixed Blessings. It doesn't outstay its welcome, but it very much just feels like album filler, like for me. So yeah, that one would get a 5 out of 10. And then we get yet another instrumental track, so you can see why this album just absolutely bamboozled people like at the time. So yeah, like sort of like 3 out of the 4 first tracks are all instrumental. And this one, Blue Cafe, is quite a serene track, very loungy kind of guitars on it, very kind of relaxing kind of music, I'd say, but also a bit cheesy as well. You got the kind of sort of schmaltzy kind of sounding string section on it, very much giving kind of like European kind of soundtrack vibes, or kind of an easy listening sort of feel to it. Like as I said, yeah, you can imagine people like at the time just thinking, what the heck is he doing here? I mean, it's pleasant enough. Again, it doesn't necessarily outstay its welcome, this one here, like either. It's just, yeah, like an interesting diversion like on like the album. So yeah, Blue Cafe would get a 6 out of 10. And then fifth track up is one that Paul Weller doesn't even sing on, so it's the Parish Match, which is a kind of which was a track they had released on the Paris EP, but this is a completely different recording featuring Tracy Thorn of Everything But the Girl, who does the vocals like on this one here. And I'm giving it a 7 out of 10, which I think like is a bit low, but it's just because I just don't really care for this version all that much. I think the song itself is great. I think it is one of Weller's very best songs, like off like this era, like a real, yeah, like hidden gem, like off like the Style Council like back catalogue. But I just think that this version just, it loses some of like the emotional punch like off like the original version. I think again, it's a lot more laid back and kind of kind of smooth kind of jazz feel to it, but I just feel that kind of loses like the melody like off this audio, which is on like the original version like an incredible melody. Like again, I think it's got some of Weller's very best lyrics on this one here, very much about the kind of feelings of kind of isolation and kind of confusion at the end like of a relationship. He sings like, as I walk from cafe to bar, wish I knew where you are, because you've clouded my mind and now I'm all out of time, he sings on it. But yeah, just for me, this version doesn't quite work. Maybe a bit harsh. It's a nice alternate version, but my go-to will always be the original one with this.
Caught up in a whirlwind and my ever-changing...
But then next one up is My Ever-Changing Moods, which again is another alternate version track, this one here, but this is a stripped back piano version like off like the song, but I think actually really works, and it is really, yeah, kind of quite grateful that we kind of have this like kind of like this like alternate version, which really allows for the kind of showcasing like of the lyrics and the songwriting like on this track here, which just, it is one of Weller's best songs. I think it's just the way it goes on this kind of lyrical journey, starting about the kind of like the ever-changing moods like of like an individual, but then kind of by the end becoming a bit more politicized and sort of talking about the ever-changing moods like of like the country like at large. This particular version adds a very powerful final verse like, evil turns to statues, the masses form a line, but I'd know which way I'd run to if the choice was mine. The past is knowledge, the present our mistake, the future we always leave too late. That bit is great, and I think really adds like something like to like the track. Again, I can't say this is better than the original version because it is one of Weller's finest tracks, and yeah, like one of like his very best singles, but this is a great alternate version which I'm very, very, very glad exists. So yeah, My Ever-Changing Moods will get a 10 out of 10. Okay, and then side one closes off with the track Dropping Bombs on the White House. So I am a bit surprised that Weller hasn't got into more bother with the with like the title like off this one here. But the music itself is a very fun jazzy instrumental, again quite a perky track. A real showcase, this, I think, of Steve White's drumming on this one. Very technically proficient, kind of, yeah, like jazz drummer, like on like this track here. And it's kind of no wonder really that he would stay like well as drummer for like the next 20 years, like until 2007, 2008 sort of time. So yeah, dropping bombs on the White House. Another kind of slightly passable kind of like jazz instrumental. Not one I would ever play like in isolation, like off the album, but just keeps the record kind of ticking by really. Okay, then side 2 kind of opens up with, for me, definitely the weakest track, and I think the general consensus is that this is the weakest track, and yeah, the biggest misstep like on the album is the track A Gospel. So kind of side 1 of this album has a kind of consistent feel to it, very much this kind of like kind of loungy, kind of jazzy kind of feel to it, but then side 2 really is all over the place, and this is a track which definitely kind of fits into that. It's a kind of early attempt at like hip-hop, this one here, featuring a rapper called Dizzy Heights. The lyrics on this are quite political again, you know. He sort of raps on this, gasping for wisdom but thick all the same, how many innocents can they claim? They play with fire and get burnt, and through the same mistakes never get learnt. It is definitely one of the more baffling moments like on the album, very much a track that I stay clear of, and unlike the jazzy instrumentals, is one that outstays its welcome. I think it would have worked if it was maybe, say, 2 minutes max, but it goes on for at least 5 minutes, and yeah, I just always skip this song like if it ever comes up, and yeah, it's a real slog to get through. So yeah, like A Gospel, 2 out of 10. Really, the redeeming features are some of the lyrics, which are quite pointed and good, but just everything else about the track is pretty bad. Okay, and then the next one up on side 2 is called Strength of Your Nature. Now, this is a more conventional kind of soul funk kind of track, again, like the Style Council's. I was going to say the Style Council's usual vein, but probably what became their usual vein on albums like The Cost of Loving. For me, this song is a good chorus, a solid chorus, but one that Weller really seemed to have forgotten to write a song about. You know, it's incredibly repetitive and it just doesn't go anywhere. It just kind of kicks off at full speed, and then it's that for about 3-4 minutes straight, and it just doesn't go anywhere at all for me. I think it definitely could have done with a verse or two like added to it, and it is a shame that, you know, a chorus kind of, which is a solid chorus, just got kind of thrown away like this. So yeah, Strength of Your Nature, another weaker track for me. Yeah, a 3 out of 10. 'Cause you're the best thing that ever happened. Okay, and then we get possibly the most well-known track on the album. Tucked away on side 2, we get You're the Best Thing, which came out as one of the album's singles. So let me find it here. So I've got the 7-inch here, which had this kind of sleeve on it, and then the 12-inch had a completely different sleeve, released under the kind of subtitle of Groovin', but it was basically You're the Best Thing, and another track called The Big Boss Groove, what came out and reached number 5 on the UK charts. Now, this is a great love song. It's definitely one of Weller's most tender sort of tracks, I think, but also he's kind of quite unique, like in that way. I mean, he's able to still get in a lot of like on paper quite political kind of lines. Like, I mean, like what other kind of like love song writer would sort of like include things like, I might be a king and steal my people's things, but I don't go for those power crazy ways. All that I could rule, but I don't check for fools. Like that bit is like, just like some great like lyrics like there. This was like I said, I guess you'd think as a single 2 months after the album's release, seemingly kind of breaking the kind of Style Council's ethos of kind of no singles from albums sort of thing. But it's an obvious song to release as a single. As I said, it's become one of Weller's most well-known tracks. It's a track that I was familiar with, or like I'd heard from either radio or TV shows or films, like even before knowing who Paul Weller was. It's kind of one of those songs that's just kind of eclipsed kind of his kind of fame like as an artist, like sort of thing. So it's a great song. I would maybe say with this particular version that like this particular album version maybe does go on a little bit too long. You know, it's stretched into almost 6 minutes. I think a kind of tighter single edit would probably work better with this track. I think it just feels a bit tighter, but it's still a great song, and I'm still giving it a 10 out of 10. So often I spite in their faces and ran for And then the next one up is Here's One That Got Away, which is a real personal favourite of mine on the album. It's punctuated by a very memorable violin part played by Bobby Valentino, and it's got a lyric that's very much kind of about the kind of championing like of the outsider and like the underdog sort of rising up against kind of like sort of like rigid like authority, with some great lines in it, like they they tried to tell me I wasn't normal. I tried to shout that I tried to shout there's no such thing. I felt so sick I spat on their lifestyles with a runaway pride. So catch me if you can, because I would rather be dead than live like that. They sing like that at the end of it. So it's a great song, real, again, another hidden gem like on this album. Yeah, just really, just tucked away kind of like on like the middle like of side 2. Okay, and then we get another great song here. So we get Head Start for Happiness, which is another re-recording like off a track. So it had originally come out on the 12-inch To Money Go Round here, in a slightly different version, you know, a kind of like sort of more stripped back kind of version. I think it might only be Weller and Mick Talbot on that, just with like acoustic guitar like and like an organ like on it. But this is a full band version here featuring brass. You've got vocal contributions from Mick Talbot sings the first verse, then Weller does a bit, and then you then get DC Lee like doing like a little bit like in like the middle like as well. It is a great song. It's full of positivity about kind of like looking forward to being like reunited like with someone like you love. He sings like the space between us for days has been so far. I've spent a lonely week. Now I want to be where you are. So yeah, simple lyrics, but you know, full of kind of this happiness and like optimism and kind of like looking forward to something. So yeah, for me, it is a great song. Always cheers me up. This so yeah, Head Start for Happiness would get a 10 out of 10. Okay, and then the album closes off with the track Cancel Meeting. So this is another instrumental, and it's probably my favourite of all the instrumental tracks for me. I think it's just a great closer. It really rounds things off well. It's got this kind of concluding kind of feel to it. I don't know, it's just very upbeat. You've got like Mick Talbot's Hammond organ really drives this track along, but then you've got some synthesizers like on it like as well. I think it's just a great closer. Yeah, again, it's maybe not one I'd necessarily play like in isolation like off the album, but I think its sequencing works really well here. So yeah, Cancel Meeting would get a 7 out of 10. Okay, so overall, this album would score 68%. So, I mean, on paper, that is not a great score. I think there's very few albums that I score which get less than 70%. Because I do tend to, review music that I really like, and I mean, I do really like this album, but it is a weird record. It's at times quite an intimidating album for the uninitiated. I think for me, this was one of the first Weller records I bought. Certainly maybe after like an initial batch of a few Jam albums. And I was very much baffled at first, and then consequently never really gave it much off a chance. But kind of revisiting it almost for this review, you really get a sense of there is some great material on here, and it's not just the three big songs on here, like You're the Best Thing, Head Start for Happiness, and My Ever-Changing Moods. There's some other really, really good, solid stuff on here, and even among some of the instrumentals, there's some good stuff as well. I like Mixed Blessings and the closing track Cancel Meeting as well. The one thing you cannot say this album is consistent, and it's kind of all over the place musically, from the from the loungy jazzy instrumentals to rap songs to then just perfect, well constructed pop songs. It's really got a bit of everything on it, and then a couple of absolute stone cold Weller classics that do make up for the missteps. At the time, this was a bold and ballsy record for Paul Weller to release, and it was very much an indication that he wasn't going to play by the rules. He wasn't going to play by anyone's expectations of him. And I think it was an important record in his career, very much setting this clear dividing line between the Jam and what he would go on to do, both in the Style Council, but also like in like his like solo career, like as well. I mean, Weller like even admits that there is stuff on this album that's on it just to wind people up, and I think when you consider that, you know, it definitely gives the album a little bit of charm. But again, I can't say it is a flawless, perfect album. There are a few really dud tracks on here which just do absolutely nothing for me. So yeah, Cafe Bleu by the Style Council, probably your definition of an inconsistent album. So now that's been my review of it. So yeah, I hope you have enjoyed. If there's any requests for future reviews you'd like to see me do, please do leave them down below in the comments, and I will see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.
This for